Venezuela joined international celebrations for the centenary of the Chinese Communist Party and the 47th anniversary of diplomatic relations between both nations. Foreign ministers from the group of 20 major capitalist economies gathered in Italy to find common ground on the issue of coronavirus vaccines. In Syria, occupying forces led by the United States sustained attacks in the province of TeleSUR. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your host, Gladys Quesada, and now we begin with the news in Venezuela, because the nation joined international celebrations for the centenary of the Chinese Communist Party and the 47th anniversary of bilateral diplomatic relations. In a ceremony in Caracas, the President, Nicolás Maduro Moros, and the Ambassador Lee Baron highlighted the strong friendship between China and Venezuela, and also the historic achievements of Chinese communists.
Because we are celebrating the 100th anniversary of the founding of the glorious Communist Party of China, the party of the Chinese People's Revolution, the party of the glorious heroic past, the party of the gigantic future of the 21st century and beyond. Our elder sister, China, and we are celebrating 47 years of diplomatic relations.
The Communist Party of China, of a small party with only 59 members. It has become the world's largest Marxist party with more than 91 million members and more than 70 years of governance in the world's largest socialist country, with more than 90% of popular support.
Was awarded Venezuela's annual National Journalism Award. This time it was the special prize honoring the 200th anniversary of the Battle of Carabobo, which sealed the country's independence from Spain in 1821. President Nicolás Maduro Moros handed the award on Monday to our colleague Susana Segovia at a ceremony in Miraflores, the Venezuelan presidential palace. The jury valued the quality of TeleSUR's huge journalistic coverage of and around the Carabobo battle commemorations, of capital importance for the whole of Latin America. The National Journalism Award is named after Venezuelan founding father Simón Bolívar. Awards were also handed in different journalist categories, ranging from television to print, news coverage and investigation, among others. In his speech at the award ceremony, President Nicolás Maduro Moros urged opposition parties to follow the lead of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela last Sunday in selecting pre-candidates for primary elections.
It has been a separate process. Hopefully, all the political parties in the country will open their floodgates and give their militants the right to their grassroots leaders to exercise power and run their candidates for the November 21 mega elections. Hopefully, all parties, left, right, center, right, hopefully, one of the conclusions is the need for the deep democratization of the political life of the country, of social life of the country. We are going to elections on November 21, and may the one who presents the best program, the best candidate, and mobilize the people in their favor win.
Maduro also announced the termination of the figure of protectorates established to implement state policies in federal states and municipalities run by the opposition.
We want to go out to war with that united opposition and win whoever has to win. And I announced it. From this election, I think the best thing is to win. Whoever wins gets to the government in your state, in your municipality, and what belongs to us. It's up to me to eliminate what we've called the protectorate. No more state and municipality protectors to rule. Whoever wins. And good things, we're going to see how they get rid of that protectorate.
16 years ago, the late Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez launched Petrocaribe, which has helped 20 Caribbean countries overcome energy shortages through Venezuelan oil and gas supplies in favorable terms. The initiative is part of the trade agreement Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, or ALBA, based on cooperation and mutual resistance. Energetic cooperation worth some $31 billion has given the Caribbean basin a greater amount of sovereignty from transnational oil corporations. 12 state energy companies from member countries have established joint ventures with the Caribbean subsidiary of Venezuela's state petroleum concern, PDVSA. In 2010, Commander Chavez stated that had not been for Petrocaribe, many countries would have had to turn off the lights and perhaps declare bankruptcy. And now we move on. Already 2 months on the national strike in Colombia, state repression continues against popular demonstrations in several parts of the country. In the city of Popayán, in the southern department of Cauca, protesters denounced that they were repressed with tear gas and pulse shots by the national police, even attacking a group of human rights observers. A similar event occurred earlier in the municipality of Pasto, department of Nariño, bordering with Ecuador, where members of the movement Movis denounced that security forces fired indiscriminately against demonstrators, leaving several injured. And the far-right Peruvian presidential candidate Keiko Fujimori continues in her maneuvers to take power despite losing the June 6 elections. Now she's urging the country's interim leader to seek an international audit of the vote. Fujimori delivered a letter to interim President Francisco Sagasti, urging him to seek an election audit from international organizations. This despite the fact that the international observers from across the world, including the Organization for American States, which played such a key role in the 2019 coup in Bolivia, confirmed that the elections were free and fair. Fujimori is desperate to avoid jail, as she faces an imminent trial on corruption charges, which will be delayed if she were to assume the presidency. Winning candidate Pedro Castillo is yet to be announced as president-elect, as the electoral authorities continue to study each of Fujimori's baseless claims of fraud. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Foreign ministers from the group of 20 major capitalist economies gathered this Tuesday in the Basilicata region of southern Italy to find common ground on the issue of coronavirus vaccines. The world's richest economies are under pressure for their disgraceful policies on pulse-stocking vaccines largely in excess of their own needs, while many developing countries lag far behind in providing immunization to billions of people. G-20 governments have not reached an agreement on releasing intellectual property rights on vaccines to facilitate mass production in developing countries. In spite of public statements, the latest G-20 meetings have focused on fighting China rather than tackling the world's most pressing survival matters, such as vaccines and the climate change. And ahead of the G20 summit, protesters paraded through the streets of Bari in southern Italy, highlighting contradictions between stated principles and actual policies on issues such as vaccines, migration or finance, which reproduces poverty for the majority and wealth for the few. And the clinical trials of Cuba's Soberana 2 vaccine in children continue. This Monday, the first 25 children aged between 3 and 11 years old received the initial dose of the vaccine candidate. The latest stage of the trials comes after the study of the safety of the dose when applied to the same number of adolescents aged between 12 and 18. A total of 350 children between the ages of 3 and 18 are said to be vaccinated as part of this pediatric trial, which comes after the announcement that 2 of the 3 doses of the Soberana O2 candidate applied to adults has shown 62% efficacy, with the 3rd dose expected to further increase effectiveness against the novel coronavirus. And in Cuba, the clinical trials of the Soberana O2 vaccine candidate in children and adolescents continues, as we were saying. On Monday, volunteers between 3 and 11 years of age received their first jabs as part of the first stage of the trial and with the prior consent of their parents. We have more details in the following report by our correspondent Lisandra Andres.
With the passing of time, will Ariane and Andres understand the significance of the moment they are currently living? Their parents decided that these 2 little ones, aged 4 and 5, respectively, would be volunteers in the clinical trials of the Cuban vaccine candidate Soberana O2 in the pediatric population.
Me vacunaron para cuidarme del coronavirus.
At the beginning, I was a little afraid because it is a trial, but later they explained to us the whole process, including how they have made and administered all the vaccines, and especially that this will allow other children to be vaccinated, and that will allow us to get over this difficult stage. And the first motive, of course, is for them to feel as well as possible, that there be no more coronavirus, that there be no more children with this terrible disease. 25 children between 3 and 11 years of age received the first dose of the Soberana O2 candidate. A selection made after the safety of the first dose was proven in adolescents aged between 12 and 18, who are also part of the trial. This is a process which is being carried out with compliance and transparency in all ethical aspects of clinical research. First of all, we have guaranteed that all the information is sufficient and detailed, and that all people who are going to participate have full knowledge of the product that is going to be administered to them.
The adverse effects that have been reported are mild. They are not serious. They are expected effects that have stopped in less than 24 hours, and that is what has allowed us to work together with SENSEC, with the Independent Data Monitoring Committee, to submit this to SECMED and give it the regulatory status it requires.
Specialists from various public health areas ensure that good clinical standards are followed, and that all data collected is accurate and reliable, which will guarantee the validity of the results obtained in the study. On the other hand, children between 12 and 18 years old are being evaluated to be included in the second phase. These children will be treated here at the Juan Manuel Marquez Hospital, at the Finlay Polyclinic in Marianao, and at the 5 September Polyclinic in Santa Fe. The stress vaccination can cause in children is compensated by the games, magic and music of La Colmenita Children's Theater Company and its Therapeutic Clown Project, who provide emotional support to the little ones during the entire process.
There is a great deal of experience and the little clowns have already mastered, for example, magic techniques, tricks, jokes to alleviate pain. The doctors tell us that during the blood extraction, and we were able to see this, they were really decisive. There were children who did not notice that they were being injected because they were so enthusiastic about the clown's work.
The clinical trial will include a total of 350 volunteers aged between 3 and 18 who will receive 2 doses of Soberana O2 and 1 of Soberana Plus, spread across a period of 28 days. Health authorities emphasize that vaccination against COVID-19 in the pediatric population plays a fundamental role, as it could have a very positive effect in containing the coronavirus.
And Russia imposed new restrictions this Monday to contain this rapid spread of the novel coronavirus, as the Delta variant causes record deaths in its 2 main cities. Both Moscow and St. Petersburg surpassed their respective daily records for COVID-19 deaths over the weekend. This, despite the progressive implementation of restrictive measures such as the return to mandatory teleworking for parts of the population and obligatory vaccination for a minimum percentage of service sector employees. According to the World Health Organization, the fast-spreading Delta variant, first identified in India, is present in at least 85 countries, forcing some of them to review their strategies. COVID-19 confirmed cases in Africa exceeded 5 million. Most countries in the continent are imposing harder restrictive health measures to face a 3rd wave of the pandemic. The figure was confirmed by Africa's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which include the 55 members of the African Union. In addition, the number of deaths from the pandemic in the continent is more than 140,000, while more than 4 million patients have recovered from the disease. South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, Ethiopia, and Egypt are the countries affected the most in the continent. And the government of Zambia, for example, closed schools, nightclubs and casinos. More than 1,000 new cases were recorded on Monday, with 60 fatalities. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. In Syria, occupying forces led by the United States sustained attacks in the province of TeleSUR. A multiple rocket attack on the Al Omar oil field was confirmed early Tuesday by Colonel Wayne Murata, spokesperson for the U.S.-led coalition. Ostensibly, they're fighting the terrorist group Islamic State or Daesh. Murata wrote on his Twitter account that the attack did not cause material damages nor casualties. Local media, however, reported damages to armored cars. And the Syrian Arab Republic condemned on Monday the blatant United States aggression on the border region with Iraq as a flagrant violation of the integrity of the territories. In a statement issued by the Foreign Ministry, the authorities reiterated the demand that the U.S. respect the territorial integrity of both Syria and Iraq and immediately cease its attacks on the independence of the two countries. The Foreign Ministry also criticized U.S. policies in the region and stressed the need to withdraw its forces in response to the wishes of the peoples and institutions of the countries where they are located. Likewise, it was stressed that the U.S. military presence in the region serves Israeli interests. The latest statements came after the border area with Iraq in the far east of Syria's province of Deir ez-Zor was targeted early Monday morning by U.S. fighter jets. The aerial attack killed at least 7 people in Syrian territory, among them a child, and 5 members of the Iraqi Popular Mobilization Forces. The Pentagon claimed in its version of events, without mentioning any victims, that the so-called precision attack was ordered by President Joe Biden against alleged Iran-backed militia groups. Former President of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, received a 15-month jail term for contempt of court following his refusal to appear before graft investigators. The former South Africa chairman is accused of enabling the plunder of state coffers during his nearly 9-year stay in office. The Commission of Inquiry investigating the case was headed by Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. The panel was set up by Zuma himself under pressure over mounting scandals shortly before he was ousted in 2018 by the ruling African National Congress. Zuma is separately facing 16 charges of fraud, graft, and racketeering relating to a 1999 purchase of fighter jets, patrol boats, and military gear from 5 European armed firms.
Judgment orders an unsuspended sentence of imprisonment for a period of 15 months.
Ethiopia's government declared an immediate unilateral ceasefire in the northern Tigray region this Monday, after nearly 8 months of deadly conflict and as rebels seized the regional capital, sending federal government officials fleeing. In a statement, the government argued that the ceasefire will enable farmers to till their land and aid groups to operate without any military movement and to engage with remnants of Tigray's former ruling party who seek peace. The announcement came shortly after the interim administration in Tigray, appointed by the federal government, fled the regional capital Mekelle as rebels fighters entered, sparking celebrations by local residents on the streets. Federal government troops invaded Tigray in November, sparking some 8 months of fighting, with widespread abuses reported, while the UN says 350,000 people have been pushed to the brink of famine.
As we all know, the time we are in right now is the rainy season. The locust swarm destroyed almost all of the produce in Tigray last year, and they couldn't collect the remaining produce because the force of destruction began the war. And after this comes to pass, and if they can't cultivate and harvest this rainy season, the problem for the community is not an easy one. It will not be one to be resolved easily, and the community will have problems for the years to come.
Iran has demanded that signatories to the nuclear deal make up their minds to save the multilateral agreement known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The pact hangs by a thread ever since the United States withdrew under former President Donald Trump in 2018. Lengthy negotiations have been taking place in Vienna, Austria, between Iran and the remaining deal signatories, United Nations Security Council members Russia, China, the UK and France, plus Germany, on the United States' return to the agreement. Under the deal, Iran had committed itself not to enrich uranium beyond 20% purity in exchange for the end of economic and financial sanctions. Trump resumed and extended sanctions, and Iran reciprocated by resuming uranium enrichment. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm your host, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.